Continuation or completion of the Maimer Yצרתי from Tafshin Yud Beis. So let's just summarize what we learned until now and finish it off. So the Rebbe asked the question, what's Zu? What's special about Zu? The Rebbe explains the idea that Zeh means this and Koi means like this. To say Zeh means I got the whole thing as is completely with every aspect of it. In anything but Atzmus you can't have Zeh because you have an idea which is in order to take you and to bring you to something else. Atzmus is mitziyusoi miatzmusoi. It exists because it exists on its own. Nothing else makes it exist, and it's not there in order to take it to anywhere else. So the only real Zeh is Atzmus. Nevertheless, a Yid is able to also have the concept of Zeh because we're one with Hashem. Torah and mitzvahs have the concept of Zeh because Torah and mitzvahs connect us and unite us with Hashem. They reveal the reality of Zeh. But then there's also something called Li'umas Zeh. Zeh Li'umas Zeh, which means that in order that it should be Bchira Chavshis, there should be free choice. And we shouldn't have Nama de Chisufa, bread of shame. So we should be able to choose Elokus. So therefore Hashem made that also there's a world which seems like it's a reality. Because that's exactly what the whole point of the physical world is, that it shows as if mitziyusah miatzmusah, as if it exists on its own and it's everything starting and ending and that there's nothing in between. How does a Yid manage to choose this Zeh, the real Zeh, the proper Zeh, in that way that the Jew becomes Zeh? That's through Torah and mitzvahs. The Torah and mitzvahs connect a person to Zeh of Atzmus. And how does that happen? Through Moshe Rabbeinu. And that's the Yavoi Zeh. The Yikach Zeh Zois Mizeh le'amzu. That Moshe is Zeh. He reveals the Zeh for a Jew through the Zois of Torah, and he reveals the Zeh of Atzmus so that a Yid becomes Amzu. Why is there the need of Moshe Rabbeinu to reveal it? It's Torah and Mitzvahs reveals it. But just Torah and Mitzvahs alone, even though it's Zeh, but a person doesn't feel the Zeh, he can still get caught up with the wrong side. And why is this? We see this through the continuation of the fact that the Jewish people are called not Zeh but Zu in feminine. Why not Zeh? And the reason is because that's the idea of Kabbalah Soil. When a person does a mitzvah and he feels himself in his spiritual self, he's limited. He doesn't have the real Zeh, the mitziyusah, miatzmusah, the essence of Hashem, because it's still there for a purpose. There's still a goal. There's still a mission of me wanting to do something for myself. And because of that, there's a difference felt between a mitzvah kala and a mitzvah chamura. A light mitzvah and a more stringent mitzvah. This mitzvah is the one that pulls me out of a place where I don't want to be. It pulls me out of the false Zeh. And it pulls me out of Shel Tachtis, out of the opposite of the reality of the world. And this mitzvah is new mela. There could be a difference between one and the other. It's only when a person has Zu, the Kabbalah Soil, the total connection to the Eibishter, where it's all to receive from Elokus, from the Eibishter, and that there's nothing else. It's only then that a person can have the real Zeh. And that the Torah and mitzvahs can really affect him, because then the Torah and mitzvahs is not limited. The Torah and mitzvahs is one with Atzmus. It's what reveals Atzmus. How does that happen through Moshe Rabbeinu and through the Moshe of every generation? This Pashtus of the Moshe of the generation brings a Jew and connects him to a reality where it's only because that's what Hashem wants. Because He reveals the Zeh, the Atzmus, and the reality of the world, so that His mitzvahs are also done in a way of Zu, of Kabbalah Soil, that is totally connected to Atzmus of Hashem. That's more or less what we learned in the Maimer till now. So the point of it is that we have Moshe Rabbeinu, and it's also very much as we're coming now towards Yud Aleph Nisan, and it's connected with all the things we learned in the Maimarim till now. The essence of Atzmos, of a Jew, of where we are, Zu, the connection to Lakos, the connection to Torah Mitzvahs in the proper way, in a way of Kabbalah Seil, is specifically when we have Moshe Rabbeinu revealing it in us, the Moshe of the generation, who brings us to the realization where it's because that's the way it is, because that's what the Eibishter wants. And then when it's Am Zu Ytzarti Li, when it's Am Zu, which receives from Hashem, the reality that the only reality in the world is Elokus, and everything else is only in order to bring to Elokus. Through Moshe Rabbeinu, through Torah and Mitzvahs, the realization of this Atzmos, that it's Yotzarti Li, that Hashem says, this Amzuz Yotzarti Li, I created for myself, that it's only for Elokus, it's only for the Eibishter, it's only for one thing, to fulfill the Ratzon, the will of Hashem, to make a Dira B'Tachtonim. Then a person is able to realize that all the outside, the Zel Umazeh, that says, I'm Zem, a reality, is only like the mashal of the Zaina that's brought in Tanya, that the Yetzirah itself wants us to realize in order lahagdil schara, in order to grade, the whole point of the Yetzirah is to, the Zeh, Lu'umazeh, is in order to help me realize the truth of Zeh, when the Yetzirah comes and tries to convince me that the world is a reality. And that's the meaning of the pasuk Am Zu Yotzarti Li, that Hashem says Yotzarti, the creation, the whole creation of the world, Yotzarti Li, is only for Am Zu, for this nation, for the Jewish nation, so that they should be Zu, so that they should reveal the reality of Elokus, of Zeh, that everything is Hashem. But when does it happen? Like we said in the beginning, that it's Zu b'lashon nekeva, when it's in the feminine. Because when a person has Zeh, that he is the one who's doing what he's supposed to do. He's the one who's deciding when and what's more important and what's less important. Because if I'm doing it based on my feeling and my understanding and my appreciation of godliness, then there's a difference between one thing and the other. That's not the ultimate purpose of the creation, because then a person is called Machvi b'machik kamimalka. He's showing as if he exists. Machvi b'machik means someone who makes a sign with his hand when he's in front of the king. It says it's the opposite of life, because he's showing, I exist, the king is here. How do you exist? Who are you that exists? If I exist, even though my existence is a spiritual existence, my existence is that I want to have an enjoyment, a pleasure of the mitzvahs. I want to do this mitzvah because I feel this is good for me, this is what's going to help me get closer to Hashem, etc. It's all I, and as long as it's I, it's my existence is a yeshus. When it's Zu, when there's a full Kabbalah Seil, a full acceptance that I'm doing it because that's what Hashem wants, a total accepting because the reality of Hashem, that's the way a person is connected with Atzmos. That's the way a person is Tilasi Yisaperu. Then he's saying the praises of Hashem because he's batal to Hashem according to the higher purpose of the creation, and that's the purpose of Yatzarti, of why Hashem created the world, in order that it should be in such a way. And the Rebbe continues even further. This is something even more and deeper, this idea, and that's that we say specifically Amzu, not just Zu in the feminine, that we're receiving and we're doing it with Kabbalah Soul from Hashem, but it's an Am. Am means Oimemois, separate. A nation is an existence that is on its own, it's separate from godliness. And here we have the amazing thing that through Zu, through the Kabbalah Soil, through the fact that my doing Torah mitzvahs is not for me and not for my gain, not even for my spiritual gain. It's in order to connect to Hashem, to do what Hashem wants, then the greatest of the great and the smallest of the small become equal. Then even the Am, even a person who's on a level of Am, and like we said earlier, that the difference between Koi and Zeh, that all the other Nevi'im, their Nevuah, their prophecy started with the word Koi, that it's not seeing godliness in its full reality and its full completion. I'm seeing only like I'm seeing things which aren't 100% what it is. Moshe Rabbeinu was nisnabe b'zeh. He was able to see godliness in its full essence of how the fullness of what it is. But when a person has Kabbalah soil and he's in the way of Zu, he's accepting from Hashem, then even someone who's in Am, even someone who's on the lowest level can reach the level of Zeh, can be able to see godliness in its fullest essence of what it is, because the Kabbalah soil connects the lowest of the low with the highest of the high. And this is also the Rebbe continues to explain a very interesting thing that it says in the Medrash, that Bizman Hazeh, in our time, during the time of Galus, we only have one Zeh. That's what we say, that when they went through Yitzias Mitzrayim, when they went through Kriyas Yamsuf, so they said Zeh Keli Van Veyu. They pointed with the finger and said Zeh. But Lasid Love, in the time of Mashiach, it says there'll be two Zehs. Hine Elokeinu Zeh, Kivinu Loi V'Yoshienu Zeh, Hashem Kivinu Loi. Twice Zeh. The Rebbe brings that the Rebbe Rashab, whose yard site was just a few days ago, and this mimer was said the day after his yard site, that the Rebbe Rashab explains that what are the two Zehs? The first Zeh is the level of Zah, Zer Anpin, which is the godly attributes, the way they're revealed in the world. And the second Zeh is the level of Atik, which in general has to do with the revelations of the time of Mashiach, the revelation of the essence of Hashem that's above the world. Which means that even though by Kriyas Yamsuf it says that even a maidservant was able to see when she went through Yamsuf what the greatest of the prophets weren't able to see. So there was already the idea of Zu, there was already the concept that, like we said, Am, the lowest, is able to see and connect to the highest because everyone's equal. Yet, it's not compared because it's all the revelations that are in the world. It's Alayam. It has to do with the ocean, the sea, with Malchus, with the way godliness is revealed in the world. But Lasid Love, in the time of Mashiach, will be the second Zeh, Hine Elokeinu Zeh, and Zeh Hashem, that will see the very essence of godliness. And the Rebbe explains that where is the difference? That in Zah, when there's the godly light, the way it's in the world, there still are differences between one level and the next. It's still not all 100% everything equal. That's the whole idea of Zah. It's called Katnos. There's a difference between what's small and what's big. The bigger, since it comes into the world, there's a difference between one who can see more and who can see less. But in the time of Mashiach, it's not going to be the same type of thing like now. Now we understand it. When we understand godliness, it comes only because we understand it. It comes through our minds. The time of Mashiach will be able to see it clearly, just like a person sees a physical thing. And that's why in the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, there were 12 paths. Each Shevet had to go on his own path, because there were still differences between one person and the next. Whereas in the time of Mashiach, everything will be all together. Everything will be all one. It will be higher than any type of separation. Everyone is going to point with their finger and be able to see it clearly all together, because we'll see with our physical eyes the essence of godliness. And that will be in the coming of Mashiach, the Amenu, when even the physical flesh of the world will be able to see, but everyone will see together, will see godliness. Now, just to summarize the point that we take from the Maimer now today is Erev Yud Aleph Nisan. We're coming to Yud Aleph Nisan, the Rebbe's birthday. It's an interesting thing. If we look at the difference between Yud Nisan and Yud Aleph Nisan, today is Yud, we're coming to Yud Aleph. Yud Nisan, in fact, was very much connected to the Gula of Mitzrayim. Yud Nisan is when the Jewish people took the sheep for the Karban Pesach. 40 years later, Yud Nisan was when the Jewish people went through the Yarden. Yud Nisan is a day which shows on the completion, the fulfillment of everything that's in the old place. When did they get completed? Their Avodah on Mitzrayim was on Yud Nisan. When did they complete the Avodah of the Midbar by going through the Yamsuf was Yud Nisan. Yud Aleph Nisan is the next day. That's the day that starts Gula. It starts a whole new cycle a whole new way. Yud is 10, 10 is the completion of the world. Yud Aleph is the one that's above 10. With 10, when we complete who we are and what we're about, it's still about me, it's still connected to how much I can do, what I understand, what I perceive, what I feel. We come to Yud Aleph, we get to an idea where there's no I. It has nothing to do with how much I can see and what I can do. It has to do with the essence of a Jew that's connected to the essence of Hashem. That's the Amzu. There, even the lowest of the low becomes connected with the highest of the high. And when we have a connection to godliness, it's not in a way of understanding that that's different in every single person. It's in a way that we see it clearly with our eyes, because we see the very essence of godliness. And may we see that speedily. And we'll be verbringing together with the Rebbe and Yud Aleph Nisan in the third Beis HaMikdash.